The future of technology really is the future of humanity.
And that's the moment that we're in right now. As leaders, we are all looking around right now for hands being raised by people who will say, I will figure it out. It can absolutely accelerate a career overnight. AI is not just technology. It's talent and time. Looking at different ways to positively disrupt. Here's the good news about AI. Those who start digging in and learning and getting curious, that's where that 5% edge becomes 500% quickly. I'm not a hardcore technologist or developer or engineer, but I am a translator and an educator and a simplifier of technology. The goal is to not come up with the right answers right now, especially as leaders. It's asking the right questions. What do I need to work through? What do I need help with? How can AI help with that? What we want to do is think of AI as a thought partner. So we have to experiment. And you can't break the rules if the rules don't exist yet. So who writes the rules? The people who experiment first. Renegades write the rules. AI is not a department. It shouldn't just live in IT or in product development. First, individuals. Personally and professionally, how can it benefit your life? Secondly, teams. Then look at the organization internally within each department. Every leader's job right now, get everyone excited and have a healthy obsession with AI because things are moving so quickly right now. AI is more like oxygen. It's a blanket across every single division and department. Marketing, supply chain, HR, customer service, ops, you name it. How can it save you time? How can you work better, more efficiently, more productively? How can we scale your knowledge to your team? Personally and professionally, how can it benefit your life? Let's look at how AI can increase our revenue through acceleration, increase the volume of our conversions and our exposure. We need smart individuals and smart teams and smart organizations before we have smart cities. And this is a companion, not a competitor. Those companies who are starting to operationalize and integrate across the horizontal are starting to see huge efficiencies. Because if we are more efficient, we'll be able to deliver so much better for our stakeholders. And we have to have that momentum. And what's great is that with AI, we now have more time to be in front of the humans that we care about. Employees, the partners, clients, and unlocks capacity for our cognitive human intelligence, like your ability to create emotional connections, human connection. We'll now start converting at even more of a premium. Capacity is infinite. This is our potential. This is what we're uniquely qualified to do as humans. And that's why I'm so excited about AI, is because it has unlocked more time, not just for me and my team and my business, but to spend with my family. Everybody just got an intern or an assistant that has a PhD in every topic. Start looking more at how we can increase our volume, accelerate what's already working using AI.
It's April 13th, 2019. I'm sitting in my happy seat, 30,000 feet in the air, getting things done. I'm headed to Palm Springs, Coachella, right? Layover in Denver. And data point, I'm 6 months pregnant. Here I am, checking boxes, no distractions. But I think I feel a contraction. So I Google Braxton Hicks, which is false labor. Beep, bop, boop. Yep, got it. Self-diagnosed, that's what's going on. Good to know. The plane lands, and I go to deplane. Something's not quite right. So I call my doctor. I'm at DIA. We've all been there, right? The long walkways. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a long walk. I said, okay, doc, here's what's going on. Data point. She said, Amy Jo, get to a hospital right now. You cannot have a baby at 27 weeks in an airport. Everything you just said to me indicates you're in labor. And I'm like, well, that's kind of dramatic. I mean, a little drastic, right? I'm going to Coachella. I am not having a baby today. Let's see how this goes. Headed to my connection. And here we have on the right customer service for United, which is super handy because I could use some customer service. So I walk up to the counter, and everyone's looking at me. And I said, has anyone here ever had a baby? because I have not, but I might be having one now, and I have no idea what it feels like. And this woman, Kathy, walks around. Love Kathy. She grabs my hand. She's like, ma'am, can you come sit down, please? Meanwhile, her colleagues are calling like paramedics to get this situation off their hands because they do not want a baby at the counter today. So Kathy's like, all right, tell me what's going on. Give her all the data. She said, yeah, why don't you just go to the hospital and get checked out? And I was like, Kathy, I'm going to Coachella. She said, I know. And there's a 6 p.m. flight. I'll get you booked there. You're good to go. Just come on back. Good plan. All right. Deal, Kathy. Things are getting pretty intense, so I figured this is probably a good step. Chauffeured to the hospital with an ambulance. And the doors open, and I see this logo. It's UC Health. I had just been in Denver about a month prior and gave a talk to UC Health. I met their leadership, I met their team, and they were amazing. And I thought, oh, I'm in great hands. I go in, they do the diagnostic stuff. And this woman, Nurse Laura, walks up to me. She's standing pretty close. She said, Miss Martin? I said, yeah. She said, you're going to have your baby in about an hour or less. I said, okay. She said, Miss Martin? I said, yes. And she gets closer. She said, look at me. I said, yeah. She said, you have to trust me. This is what we do here, and we're very good. And at that moment, I was like, game on. Okay. It's like she was my confident surrogate, right? I have baby Lincoln within the hour. He's a 2-pound micro preemie. I could fit my wedding ring around his ankle. He's about 6 months in this photo, so a little bigger. But we spent the next 3 months in the NICU. Now, I share this story, and by the way, Lincoln just turned 4. He's in great health. You would never know. He was on oxygen. Thank you. I share this story for 2 reasons. One, because humans connect with humans, not logos, right? And connection converts. Connection always converts, and it compounds over time. So Nurse Laura and Kathy, they are the humans. They are the heartbeat behind those 2 brands. And you can guarantee I'm pretty loyal at this point, right? But you are the humans behind your brand. You are. Your team is. What are you doing to invest in yourself as a person, not just as a professional? Because we have to humanize to monetize. And secondly, I share this story because today I'm going to teach the renegade mentality. Little did I know, I had been training for that moment for the past 2 decades. I live my life by 5 rules. The Renegade Rules, it's changed my life. And I'll share these rules with you today. I'll also help you identify what I refer to as a why not now idea, something you've been thinking about doing. It could be personal, it could be professional, and give you the tools to greenlight it today by the end of this session.
I've been getting some questions lately about Renegade, what it is, how it came to be. So I thought I'd sit down, answer some of those questions, and share a bit of my backstory. And that's what we're going to do today. Oh gosh, so small town girl, grew up in trailer parks from Wyoming to Kansas, then lived in Arizona, and we moved a lot. And it was fun. It was always an adventure because our home was on wheels. And in elementary school, changing schools was something that I look back now and I credit that to a lot of the progress that I've been able to make in business, especially change, right? You almost become used to and not addicted to change, but very welcoming of it and adaptable. And working in technology and in the industries I've worked in, that's served me very well, because if you're not constantly seeking that change, it's not going to end well, right? So yeah, we moved around a lot, and I remember running away often, but I'd always get hungry and come back each night. And I would run away because I was always just curious of what was out there. Like, I loved the idea of exploring and going, finding things or creating, a new world, and definitely had some entrepreneurial like glimmers in there as I look back. I had a club once and I did charge an entry for the club, and I've, started a lot of different things. There was this shed next to the trailer, our trailer in one of the small towns. And these were tiny towns, by the way. I mean, we had a Dairy King, not a Dairy Queen, and it wasn't open on the weekends. But there was an extra lot next to us in this one small town, and it had a shed that stays there, and then the next mobile home comes in and out, in and out. And I started using that open shed as one of my clubs where I decorated it inside, and then I just charged my friends like, okay, 50 cents to come in. And I had all of these things like my gymnastics mat. I had posters of like Team Beat stars. It was probably Kirk Cameron and who knows who else, Luke Perry and Michael J. Fox. And then when we went to move to the next town, my parents were like, is there anything in the shed? Yeah, there's a lot in the shed. They could not believe. I turned it into like this little, anyway. So yeah, we moved a lot, ended up living in Arizona, never the smartest kid in the class, always tried to be the hardest working, had a chip on my shoulder, and ended up graduating and getting a full-time scholarship to one of the state schools, or the in-state universities. So NAU, ASU, or U of A. And I chose ASU, headed to the big city, Phoenix. It was the #1 party school in America, and that's Playboy ranked, so had that going for me. But it was an interesting time because it was, small town girl ends up in this school of over 100,000 students. And that was a wide, open awakening. So I don't know why I had a chip on my shoulder. I'd say the chip started growing when I started getting into more of the professional sports and working in that industry, thinking I kind of needed to overcorrect, or I had something to prove. Pushing from a place of, having something to prove versus purpose has been a conversion I've worked at over time. But I think it was pretty good fuel as long as it's convertible into a more sustainable fuel, because that's fleeting. And working in the advertising industry right out of school with a marketing and business degree, I saw a lot of aspects of business. I saw media, I saw the creative side, PR, obviously marketing, account management, and client services. And I worked on all the professional sports teams in the Phoenix area and the Arizona Lottery, which was fun. And it was old school. We still shot commercials on film, and we had to do telecine, and we had print ads, and that's right when the digital wave was happening, right? Websites were coming onto the scene, and it was also during the .com bubble burst, so there's a lot of disruption, a lot of money in motion, shifting gears, and I just loved being on the edge and helping create the website or think about what was needed, email marketing. I had a crush on brands growing up. And I felt like they were human, like they had a personality. Fast forward, it's amazing how you kind of manifest that in your life or career, because then I went on to humanize brands, literally, but the Nike logo and the Coca-Cola logo, they were so fascinating to me because they had such power. You could see the affinity of people wanting, and I'm like, it's a logo. And I was always really intrigued by design and just what a logo could mean. And I did have a crush on brands, and I still do today. So fast forward, and I ended up working for the Phoenix Suns in the NBA, 05-06 season to 08-09, and it was such a fun time in basketball, especially for Phoenix. We had all of these incredible all-stars, Steve Nash, Mari Stoudemire, Sean Marion, Grant Hill, Shaquille O'Neal, like the list goes on. And I became kind of the, she'll figure it out person, mobile marketing. Amy Jo will figure it out. Or, how can we sell against some of these online assets or digital assets? And I ended up in those meetings and eventually convinced them to give me a job. I wrote the description myself. And I remember going into my boss, who was a senior vice president in the league, female. And there was a very encouraging individual, this was key, that was one of the owners. His name was Sam Garvin. And he saw it. He could see the vision that I could see too. It's like, this is where we're headed. We got to go big. There's so much more. We're just barely there. And this was bleeding edge. I mean, 05, 06, 07, 08. And I just started experimenting. And I had this new role, the director of new media and research. And I just started asking a lot of forgiveness instead of permission and trying some things out. I think the momentum came from not only seeing that this was working, but the feedback loop of people wanting to know what I knew. So a lot of the, whether it's president or ownership team, they wanted to know what I had learned. And I was 20, 30 years their junior, and I knew I had something they wanted, and that was knowledge. And that gave me confidence. And I had to remind myself of that constantly because, there are billionaires in the room of some of these meetings. And I just had to keep remembering, you're here for a reason because you have information and insight that they don't. I do think having confidence in myself and what I was seeing and seeing what was working and knowing, that 5% edge became 500%, like almost overnight, especially just even externally from a following of 0 going to 1 million. Small town girl from Wyoming isn't used to that kind of spotlight, but I think the confidence of, and always feeling pretty comfortable in these, circles of power in boardrooms has come from knowing my stuff, right? And the bravery to go out and experiment and come back with results. I think that's just, we can talk all day. It doesn't matter who you are, but if I have data or I have proof, I'm going to feel confident. And of course you have your jitters and your, imposter syndrome left and right, but I found tricks for those because those I could control. And it was like, I was on an island though, right? I didn't have a crew backing me up necessarily. I remember there being a moment where I took my laptop into the arena, right? It was during the day, so the offices were literally at the same places, the arena and the practice court, and it was dark, and so you've got thousands and thousands of seats that are empty, and I just worked from there because I felt like there was so much resistance or just disapproval of this navigating and kind of diving into uncharted waters. It made everybody uncomfortable. There were no rules yet. So people don't like situations where, they don't know where the boundaries are. You're doing something new and it's like, wait, there was healthy tension, competitiveness. There was just a lot of, I believed in this way and I did it with integrity, but I had to go solo in the beginning. And then you find your advocates and allies. I loved what I was doing, and so I worked a lot because it brought me joy and energy, and it was stimulating. And I thought to myself one day, I see traction here. What if I could just do this on my own terms and design my own day? And this was 2008. And, there's this big moment in time where I meet Shaquille O'Neal and then start helping him, and we're on the team plane, and it's like a story I tell all the time, but this was a moment. And I do believe in those so much, where these moments you have a choice, and you kind of need to know how to manufacture bravery. And that's what I did. Started the first company, my first company. It was one of the first social media agencies to ever exist. And Shaquille O'Neal was our first client. Then we've got Nike, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Fox Sports, Hilton Worldwide, employees in 10 different countries. I'm a 20-something entrepreneur, never done this before, but having fun and riding the wave, write the New York Times best-selling book. And, there came a point where I was like, why am I doing this? Why? Is there purpose? I felt like that pushing from a place to prove something, that chip on my shoulder, it's not sustainable, right? And that rock star happiness and high wasn't. So I started getting more curious, and it came to a moment one day where, I'd been on 210 flights in 1 year, averaging the 4 hours of sleep a night. The company was just, gaining in numbers and, revenue, extremely successful right out of the gate. And I was still feeling empty. And I'm at the departure board one day at JFK, and I can't remember where I was. And I finally figured out, okay, I'm in New York. And then I walk over and head to fuel up for the day, Starbucks. And I go to sign the receipt on the coffee. And I can't remember my name. And it was one of the scariest moments of my life because things were moving so fast. I had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing what I was doing. From the outside looking in, it looked amazing, right? Just got the numbers, got the stats, flying private with, fancy clients. And from the inside, it didn't match. And so I was an emotionally and physically bankrupt millionaire. And that feeling was instant. Oh, maybe this isn't what I wanted. I've been chasing all these things, and I don't have any guides either. Like, it's always been me, and who am I learning from, and why am I trying to do this on my own? And fast forward, I look back at that moment, and I created Renegade because I wished I had people that I could go to in moments like that, personally and professionally. And that's what we've created at Renegade. We help each other do the really, really hard stuff. Getting down those black diamond, mountains of business and life, it's the real deal. And you need guides. So that was a moment that definitely served as the genesis for Renegade.